6 hours in a waiting room teaches you a lot about patience. Nora Lindgren had counted the ceiling tiles twice, watched 47 ships dock through the viewport, and memorized the faces of every alien species that walked past the glass door without looking at her. Nobody had told her why she was here. Nobody had offered water or food. She was human, after all, and humans were new to galactic society. New meant unimportant. New meant you waited until someone remembered you existed. The door finally opened. A tall creature with pale blue skin and 4 eyes gestured for her to follow. Administrator Yulith, according to the name tag. Nora had learned to read 12 alien languages in the past year. It was the only way to survive in a galaxy that did not care if you understood or not. They walked through corridors filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Some looked at Nora with curiosity. Most looked through her like she was furniture. Yulith led her to a private office and sat behind a floating desk. You know the Dravine? Nora nodded. Everyone knew of the Dravine. They were legends. An ancient species that had cut themselves off from the galaxy 12,000 years ago. They lived in a place called the Quiet Fold, a region of space where technology failed. No one knew why. No one had successfully made contact. 17 diplomatic missions have tried to reach them, Yulith said. All have failed. The Dravine simply ignore every attempt at communication. Why are you telling me this? Nora asked. Yulith's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Because the Council has decided to send an 18th mission. You will lead it. Nora waited for the explanation. When it came, it was exactly what she expected. Humans are new here. You have no political value. If you fail, we lose nothing of importance. If you succeed, we gain everything. Yulith paused. We expect you to fail. But even observational data from the fold would be useful. There it was. The truth that no one bothered to hide anymore. Humans were expendable. Test subjects. Canaries sent into mines to see if the air was poison. Nora should have been angry. Instead, she felt something else. An opportunity. Tell me about the previous missions, she said. Yulith pulled up files on a holographic display. Nora read through them quickly. Every mission had followed the same pattern. Advanced ships with the best shielding. Sophisticated translation software. Recording devices meant to capture every detail. Communication arrays designed to broadcast on every known frequency. And every mission had failed the same way. The technology degraded in the fold. Systems crashed. Translators went offline. The diplomats, unable to function without their devices, retreated or simply sat in their broken ships until rescue came. They all relied on technology, Nora said quietly. Of course, Yulith replied. How else would one communicate with an unknown species? Nora thought about her childhood. A small village in northern Sweden where power outages lasted for days. Where her grandmother taught her to read faces instead of screens, to listen to tone instead of translation software, to speak with her hands when words failed. I will need a shuttle, Nora said, and a pilot willing to wait at the edge of the fold. That can be arranged. Yulith studied her with something that might have been curiosity. You seem calm for someone being sent to almost certain failure. Maybe I have different expectations. The administrator made a sound that could have been a laugh. You have 3 days to prepare. The shuttle and pilot will be ready at Dock 7. Nora stood to leave, then paused. What do the Dravine actually want? Has anyone ever figured that out? No, Yulith admitted. That is what makes them so frustrating. They do not attack visitors. They do not threaten. They simply do not respond. It is as if we do not exist to them. Nora nodded slowly. An idea was forming in her mind. A dangerous, possibly stupid idea. That night, she packed her official diplomatic kit. Then she quietly removed 3 items: the backup translator, the emergency beacon, and the data recorder. In their place, she put a paper notebook, a wooden pencil, and a photograph of her grandmother standing in the snow outside their village home. Her grandmother had died 10 years ago, but Nora still remembered her voice. Technology is a tool, not a crutch. The moment you forget how to connect without it, you forget how to be human. The galaxy thought humans were primitive, weak, disposable, Maybe that was exactly what the Dravine needed, that on the morning of departure, Nora walked to Dock 7 with her bag over her shoulder. A human pilot named Ren Castor was running pre-flight checks on a small shuttle. He looked up as she approached. "You are the diplomat?" he asked. "I am. They told me this is probably a one-way trip." They told me the same thing. Ren studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Good. I was getting bored anyway." They boarded the shuttle together. As the dock doors opened to reveal the stars, Nora touched the photograph in her pocket. She was not afraid of the quiet fold. She was not afraid of silence or darkness or failing machines. She had grown up with all of those things. What she feared was a galaxy that had forgotten how to truly see each other. Maybe it was time to remind them. The first system failed on day 1. Navigation flickered twice, then displayed numbers that made no sense. Ren switched to manual calculations and kept flying. "Told you this would happen," he said, not sounding worried. The fold does not like machines. Nora sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the stars through the viewport. They looked different here. Softer somehow, like candles instead of electric lights. "How did you learn to fly without instruments?" "Military training. Old school stuff they do not teach anymore." Ren tapped his temple. "They made us memorize star patterns, calculate trajectories by hand. Everyone thought it was a waste of time. Guess it was not." By day 2, half the shuttle systems were dead or dying. Life support still worked, but the water recycler made strange noises. The communication array had gone silent 12 hours ago. They were alone now, truly alone, in a way that most beings in the galaxy never experienced. Nora found that she did not mind. She spent hours looking out the viewport, writing observations in her paper notebook. The fold was not empty. Strange lights drifted in the distance. Shapes that might have been ships or might have been something else entirely moved at the edge of visibility. "You are not scared," Ren said on the second night. It was not a question. Should I be? Most people would be. Cut off from everything, flying into unknown space with failing equipment. He paused. "I have seen diplomats panic when their translation software glitched. You have not even checked your devices." Nora smiled. "I grew up in a place where the power went out every winter, sometimes for a week at a time. My grandmother used to say that darkness was not the enemy. Fear of darkness was." Smart woman. She was. Nora pulled out the photograph and showed it to him. An old woman standing in snow, smiling at the camera. "She taught me everything important. How to read people, how to listen, how to be patient." Ren took the photograph gently, studied it, then handed it back. "Is that why they picked you? Because you can function without technology?" "They picked me because I'm expendable. But yes, that is why I agreed to go." On day 3, they reached the Dravine world that IT hung in space like a green and blue jewel, wrapped in clouds that seemed to glow from within. No satellites orbited it. No space stations. No defensive platforms. Just a planet, beautiful and untouched. "Sensors are mostly dead," Ren reported. "But I'm getting something. Not electronic. More like a vibration in the hull." Nora felt it too. A gentle hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was almost like music, though no melody she could name. "Landing coordinates," she said quietly. "They are telling us where to go." "How do you know that?" "I do not know, but I feel it." Ren guided the shuttle into orbit. Below them, the planet revealed itself slowly. Vast forests covered most of the surface. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden by clouds. Rivers wound through valleys like silver ribbons. There are no cities, no roads, no visible signs of civilization at all. "Where do they live?" Ren asked. "Everywhere, maybe, or nowhere we would recognize." The shuttle could not survive a landing. Too many systems had failed. But there was a manual descent pod, old technology that used parachutes instead of thrusters. Nora had requested it specifically. "I go alone from here," she said. Ren shook his head. "I should come with you. Someone needs to stay. To tell them what happened if I do not come back. If you do not come back, I am coming after you." Nora smiled and touched his arm. "Give me 3 weeks. If I'm not back by then, you can play hero." Before she climbed into the pod, Ren pressed something into her hand. A small metal compass, old and scratched. Family heirloom, he said. Works without power. My grandfather carried it in 3 wars. Brought him home every time. I cannot take this. You're not taking it. You are borrowing it. Bring it back. Nora closed her fingers around the compass. It was warm from his hand. Thank you. The pod detached with a gentle push. Nora watched the shuttle grow smaller above her as she fell toward the planet. Her suit's sensors flickered warnings about temperature and pressure and a dozen other things. She ignored them all. The parachute deployed perfectly. The old technology did not care about the fold. It just worked the same way it had worked for centuries. She landed in a clearing surrounded by trees taller than any she had ever seen. The air smelled like rain and growing things. For a long moment, she just sat there, breathing, feeling the ground beneath her. Then she saw them, figures emerging from the tree-line. Tall, silver-skinned, moving with a grace that seemed almost liquid. They carried no weapons. Their faces showed no fear. Nora's helmet display showed error after error. Life support failing. Sansol offline. Translation matrix corrupted beyond repair. She had a choice to make. The Dravine stopped a few meters away. Watching, waiting, Nora reached up and touched her helmet release. This was either the smartest thing she had ever done or the last mistake she would ever make. She pressed the button. The helmet came off with a soft click. Every sensor on her suit died at once. The display went black. The communicator fell silent. The environmental monitors stopped their constant chatter of numbers and warnings. For the first time in her adult life, Nora was completely alone with her own senses. The air hit her face like a gentle wave. It was warm and sweet, filled with scents she had no names for. Flowers, maybe, growing things, rain that had fallen hours ago and was still rising from the soil. She took a deep breath and felt something in her chest loosen. Something she had not known was tight. The Dravine stopped moving. All 7 of them stood perfectly still, watching her with eyes that reflected the light like polished silver. She had surprised them. In 12,000 years of isolation, no visitor had ever done what she just did. One of them stepped forward, taller than the others, with markings on their skin that might have been age or rank or something else entirely. They spoke, and the words were like water flowing over stones. Beautiful. Completely incomprehensible. Nora did not panic. She had prepared for this. She placed her hand on her chest. Nora, she said clearly. Then she pointed at them and tilted her head in question. The Dravine exchanged glances. Something passed between them, a communication she could not hear or see. Then the tall one mimicked her gesture, hand on chest. San, they said. Nora smiled. She could not help it. In 3 seconds, she had accomplished more than 17 diplomatic missions combined. She had learned a name. She reached slowly into her bag and pulled out her notebook. The Dravine watched with intense curiosity as she opened it, revealing blank pages. Then she took out her pencil and began to draw a circle. A stick figure inside it. The shuttle above. Lines showing the path down. San leaned closer, studying the marks on the paper. They reached out one long finger and touched the page gently, as if afraid it might break. Paper, Nora said, holding up the notebook. Pencil. She held up the writing tool. San tried to repeat the words. The sound were wrong, but the attempt was there. Then they crouched down and began drawing in the soil with their finger a circle. A stick figure with longer limbs. Lines radiating outward like rays of sun. Nora understood. The circle was the planet. The figure was a Dravine. The lines were their reach, their presence, their connection to everything around them. She drew her own version. A small circle far away. A tiny figure. A long, long line stretching across the page to reach the first circle. San looked at the drawing for a long time. Then they looked at Nora with something that might have been wonder. The hours passed without Nora noticing. The sun moved across the sky, turning from yellow to orange to deep red. The other Dravine came closer, each one offering something new. One brought water in a woven cup. Another brought fruit that tasted like honey and summer rain. A third sat beside her and began humming, a low sound that vibrated in her bones. By sunset, Nora had filled 6 pages with drawings. Simple things. The shuttle, the stars, her home planet, her grandmother. When she showed them the photograph, the Dravine gathered around like children seeing magic for the first time. They touched the image gently, traced the outline of her grandmother's face, made soft sounds of amazement. She taught me, Nora said, pointing to the photograph, then to herself, then mimicking the act of learning. She taught me how to see. San understood. She was certain of it. Not the words, but the meaning behind them. A darkness fell. A new figure emerged from the trees, taller than any of the others, ancient in a way that had nothing to do with physical age. The other Dravine stepped back respectfully as this one approached. The warden. Nora knew it without being told. The leader. The keeper of whatever secrets this world held. The warden stopped before her and looked down with eyes that seemed to contain entire galaxies. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the warden spoke a single word. Nora should not have understood it. There was no translation, no technology, no logical reason for the meaning to reach her. But it did, clear as a bell ringing in an empty room. Why? Why had she come? Why had she removed her helmet? Why had she chosen to be vulnerable when every other visitor had hidden behind machines and shields? Nora thought about lying, about diplomatic answers and careful phrases. But this being would see through all of that. The warden had been watching visitors fail for millennia. They knew what deception looked like. She told the truth. Because I wanted to meet you. Not through a screen. Not through a translator. You. She touched her eyes, then pointed at the warden. To really see you. The warden was silent for a long time. The forest around them had gone quiet too, as if every living thing was holding its breath. Then the warden did something no visitor had ever witnessed. They smiled, and Nora knew that everything was about to change. 3 days changed everything Nora thought she knew about the galaxy. The Dravine did not speak with words alone. They spoke with movement, with touch, with silence that carried more meaning than any sentence. Nora learned to listen with her whole body. She learned to answer the same way. On the 3rd day, the warden invited her into a structure that seemed to grow from the living forest itself. Walls of wood and vine curved overhead, filtering the sunlight into patterns that shifted with the breeze. There were no chairs, no tables, no furniture of any kind. Just soft ground covered with moss that glowed faintly in the shadows. Nora sat cross-legged before the warden. San sat beside her, ready to help translate the concepts that could not be drawn or gestured. You ask why we hide, the warden said. The words came slowly, mixed with gestures and expressions that filled in what language could not. The answer is shame. Nora waited. She had learned that the Dravine did not rush. Truth took time. 12,000 years ago, we were not like this. The warden's silver eyes grew distant, seeing something far away and long ago. We were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Our technology could build worlds, destroy stars, connect minds across impossible distances. San drew in the soil as the warden spoke. Ships that looked like mathematical equations. Cities that floated in space. Beings linked together by glowing threads of light. We thought we had achieved perfection. Every problem solved by machines. Every question answered by algorithms. Every connection mediated by technology so advanced it felt like magic. The warden paused. When they continued, their voice was heavy. We forgot how to talk to each other. Nora leaned forward, not understanding. Not the words. The warden explained. We had perfect translation. Perfect communication, but we lost the ability to truly hear. Everything was filtered, analyzed, optimized. We spoke to machines that spoke to machines that spoke to other beings. We never touched, never looked into each other's eyes, never sat in silence together and felt the weight of presence. San's drawing changed. The glowing threads became chains. The floating cities became prisons. Our children grew up without knowing how to read a face. Our elders died surrounded by devices but completely alone. We had connection to everyone and intimacy with no one. The warden stood and walked to the edge of the structure, looking out at the forest. We were dying, not physically. Our bodies were perfect, enhanced, immortal. But inside we were empty. hollow, going through the motions of life without actually living. Nora thought about her own world, about people staring at screens instead of each other, about children who could not make eye contact, about the quiet loneliness that seemed to grow every year despite more and more ways to connect. So you created the fold, she said quietly. Yes, we built a place where technology could not survive, where we would be forced to remember what we had lost. The warden turned back to face her. It was painful. Many of us did not survive the transition. We had become so dependent on our machines that living without them felt like dying. But you learned. We learned. Slowly. Painfully. Over thousands of years, we remembered how to be present, how to listen, how to truly see. The warden returned to sit before Nora, and we watched the galaxy make the same mistakes we had made. That is why you reject visitors, Nora realized. They cannot function without their technology. They prove your point just by coming. Every ship that arrives is full of beings who cannot hear without translators, cannot see without sensors, cannot think without computers telling them what to think. They look at us, but they do not see us. They speak, but they do not communicate. San touched Nora's hand gently. She understood the gesture. You are different. You removed your helmet, the warden said. No one has ever done that. Every other visitor clung to their failing machines until they had to leave. You chose to be vulnerable. You chose to be present. I had a good teacher, Nora said, thinking of her grandmother. Your species is young. You still remember what it means to be alone, to struggle, to face the universe with nothing but your own senses. That is not weakness. That is strength. The warden leaned forward, and for the first time, Nora saw something like hope in those ancient eyes. We have knowledge, Nora. Wisdom earned through terrible mistakes. We want to share it to help others avoid the path we walked. But we can only share it with those who can receive it directly, without filters, without machines between us. You want me to be a bridge, Nora said slowly. We want your species to be a bridge. Humans are new enough to still be adaptable, still capable of growth, still able to sit in silence with another being and feel the weight of their presence. The warden extended a hand. Nora took it without hesitation. Will you carry our message to the galaxy? The warden asked. Nora thought about the council that had sent her as an expendable test subject, about the species that looked through her like she was nothing, about a galaxy so connected it had forgotten how to connect. Yes, she said, I will. And she meant it with everything she had. 2 weeks felt like 2 hours in the forest of the Dravine. Nora woke each morning before sunrise and walked through trees that seemed to whisper greetings. She ate meals with beings who had lived for centuries, learning their songs, their stories, their quiet jokes that needed no translation. She filled notebook after notebook with drawings and observations in a new language that flowed like water. San became her constant companion. The Dravine scientist had an endless curiosity about humans, about Earth, about the small blue world that still taught its children to look each other in the eye. Every day brought new questions, new discoveries, new moments of connection that felt like gifts. On the 14th day, San brought Nora to a clearing she had not seen before. In the center stood a tree unlike any other. Its trunk was silver, like the skin of the Dravine themselves. Its branches spread wide enough to shelter a village. Its leaves glowed with soft light, even in the middle of the day. The first tree, San said. It remembers everything we were, everything we lost, everything we learned. Nora approached slowly, feeling a warmth that seemed to come from the tree itself. When she touched the bark, images flooded her mind. Cities of crystal and light, ships that sailed between stars, beings laughing, crying, holding each other, fighting, loving, dying. 12,000 years of history compressed into a single moment of understanding. She pulled her hand back, gasping. The tree stores memory, San explained. Not in data, in feeling, in experience. Anyone who touches it can understand who we truly are. It is beautiful, Nora whispered. San reached up and carefully removed a single seed from a low-hanging branch. It was small, no bigger than a fingernail, but it pulsed with the same soft light as the leaves. For you, San said, placing the seed in Nora's palm. A gift. Plant it on your world, and it will grow. It will carry our memory, our story, our hope. Nora stared at the tiny seed. In her hand, she held the collected wisdom of the oldest civilization in the galaxy. The weight of it was impossible to describe. I do not know if I am worthy of this, she said honestly. You removed your helmet, San replied simply. That made you worthy. That evening, the warden gathered all the Dravine who had worked with Nora. Dozens of silver figures stood in a circle beneath the first tree, their eyes reflecting its gentle glow. Nora stood in the center, feeling very small and very human. The warden spoke, and everyone listened. For 12,000 years, we have watched the galaxy. We have seen species rise and fall. We have seen empires built on technology crumble when that technology failed. We have seen beings so connected they forgot how to be alone, and so isolated they forgot how to reach out. The warden turned to Nora. We have waited for someone who could bridge these gaps. Someone who could carry our message without distorting it. Someone who could see us clearly and help others do the same. Nora felt the weight of every eye on her. She straightened her shoulders. Humans are young. Your species makes many mistakes. But you still have something precious. You still remember what it means to struggle, to adapt, to face darkness without running away. That is why we choose you. The warden extended both hands. In one palm lay a small crystal that glowed with inner light. In the other lay a carved token that Nora recognized as the symbol of the Dravine people. Take these. The crystal will let you call us across any distance. The token marks you as our voice in the galaxy. When you speak for us, you speak with our full authority. Nora took both items carefully. Her hands were steady, even if her heart was racing. 3 of our people will return with you, the warden continued. The first ambassadors to leave this world in 12,000 years. They will speak only with those willing to learn our ways. No technology, no filters, direct connection, or nothing at all. San stepped forward, and Nora realized with a surge of joy that her friend would be one of the 3. One condition, the warden added. You must prepare them. The galaxy is not ready to hear us. Most beings will refuse. Many will not understand. You must find those who can listen and teach them how. I understand, Nora said. It will not be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. But you have proven that you can do difficult things. The warden smiled, that rare expression that transformed their ancient face. We believe in you, Nora of Earth. Do not make us regret it. Later, as she prepared to leave, the warden touched her forehead gently. For a moment, Nora saw the galaxy through Dravine eyes. Millions of worlds, billions of beings, all talking past each other, all desperately lonely despite constant connection. And in the middle of it all, a small blue planet where people still gathered around fires, still held hands, still looked into each other's eyes, and saw something real. Protect that, the warden whispered. It is more precious than you know. Nora nodded, unable to speak. The next morning, she walked toward the clearing where her pod had landed. San and 2 other Dravine walked beside her. Behind them, the entire community had gathered to watch. Ren's shuttle appeared in the sky, battered but flying. He had waited, just as he promised. The return journey had begun. Ren cried when he saw her. He was not ashamed of it. The shuttle had been waiting at the edge of the fold for 3 weeks, just as he promised. When the sensors finally detected movement, when he saw not one figure but 4 approaching through the trees, he did not trust his eyes. The instruments were still unreliable. It could have been a ghost, a dream. Then Nora waved, and he knew it was real. He landed the shuttle in the same clearing where he had dropped her off a lifetime ago. When the door opened and she climbed inside, followed by 3 tall silver beings, he simply stared. I brought friends, Nora said with a smile. I can see that. Ren looked at the Dravine with wonder and fear and hope all mixed together. They are coming with us. They are. Meet San, Brel, and Tova, the first Dravine ambassadors in 12,000 years. Ren shook his head slowly. The council is not going to believe this. They will when they see. The journey back through the fold was different. With the Dravine aboard, the strange space seemed almost welcoming. Systems that had failed began to flicker back to life. The shuttle moved faster, smoother, as if the fold itself was helping them along. When they emerged into normal space, Ren sent a message to the council station. The response came immediately, filled with disbelief and demand for proof. He simply turned on the visual communicator and let them see for themselves. The arrival at the council station was chaos. Ships from a dozen species gathered to watch the shuttle dock. Reporters and diplomats and military officials crowded the corridors. Everyone wanted to see the impossible made real. Administrator Yulith met them at the docking bay. The four-eyed alien looked at Nora, then at the Dravine, then back at Nora. For once, they seemed at a loss for words. "You succeeded," Yulith finally said. "I did. How?" Nora smiled. "I took off my helmet." The council chamber was packed. Representatives from every known species filled the seats, their attention fixed on the small human woman standing at the center of the floor. Behind her stood the three Dravine ambassadors, silent and patient. Councillor Mavi, a politician who had loudly opposed the mission from the start, spoke first. "This is impossible. No one has made contact with the Dravine in millennia. How do we know these are not imposters?" "You could ask them yourself," Nora replied calmly. "Very well." Mavi activated their translation device. "Dravine representatives, please confirm your identity." San looked at the counselor with those ancient silver eyes. Then they turned away and said nothing. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Mavi's face flushed with anger. "They refuse to cooperate. This proves nothing." "They are not refusing," Nora explained. "They are waiting. The Dravine do not speak through machines. If you want to communicate with them, you must do it directly. No translators, no devices, just your voice and your presence." "That is absurd. How can we conduct diplomacy without translation technology?" "You learn." Nora held up her notebook, filled with drawings and symbols in a new language. "I learned their basic communication in 3 weeks. Anyone can do it if they are willing. And if we are not willing, then you will never hear what they have to say." The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors demanded that the Dravine conform to standard diplomatic protocol. Others accused Nora of making unreasonable conditions. A few, mostly the younger representatives, looked thoughtful. Through it all, the Dravine stood in patient silence. Finally, Nora raised her hand for quiet. "The Dravine have knowledge that could transform the galaxy. Wisdom learned over 12,000 years of isolation. But they will only share it with those who can receive it directly. That is not a demand. It is a requirement. Their knowledge cannot be filtered through machines without losing its meaning." She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes wherever she could. "Humanity will serve as intermediaries. We will learn the Dravine ways and teach them to anyone willing to learn in return. We will be the bridge between their world and ours." Mavi laughed harshly. "Humans, you're the newest species in the galaxy. The least advanced. The most primitive." "Yes," Nora agreed. "And that is exactly why they chose us." The vote took 3 days. In the end, it passed by a narrow margin. Humanity was granted official status as the voice of the Dravine in galactic affairs. For the first time since joining the Council, humans were not just members. They were essential points. 6 months later, Nora stood before a class of 20 human diplomats. They came from every nation on Earth, chosen for their adaptability, their patience, their ability to connect without relying on technology. She held up a helmet, standard issue for off-world communication. "Every sensor will go dark the moment this comes off," she told them. "Your translator will fail. Your recorder will die. Your emergency beacon will go silent. You will be alone with your own senses and nothing else." She set the helmet aside. That is when the real conversation begins. Outside the window, the seed from the first tree had grown into a sapling. Its silver bark gleamed in the sunlight. Its leaves glowed with soft inner light. Already, people gathered around it daily, sitting in silence together, learning to be present. The galaxy was starting to remember what it had forgotten, and it had begun with a single human who was brave enough to take off her helmet.